I've put this off for long enough. Hi everyone, welcome to January 12th. It's already the middle of January, and I can't quite place my finger on why I've been putting this off so much. I was so excited for my rest month of December to go by and to just jump into this. I thought, like, New Year, January 1st, I was gonna pull this out and just get to work. And that didn't happen. It took me a while to get back after the holidays and kind of feel settled again. Also, we're moving across the country this month. I think what my problem is, I keep waiting to feel settled and like the time is right. Like, I keep waiting for the perfect time, like the cozy time to pull out my draft and start reading it. And I've just never felt that way, and it's not going to feel that way for a while because we're moving, and it's gonna be a minute. When we have a task and we find ourselves waiting for the perfect time to do that task, we're really procrastinating it for some other reason that we just don't want to admit. And I think for me, I realized that I am more scared of rereading this than I realized. I'm so scared of having to face how bad it is, and I think at the core of things, really scared that when I read it, I won't find anything to like about it. And I won't find any glimmer of hope. I won't find a single thing that I still like about it or am proud of. And I'm just afraid that I'm going to want to totally trash it. And that would really break my heart. I mean, I don't think I'm going to give up on it, but that's the fear, that you're going to find a draft in here that's so terrible that you cannot bear to work on it anymore. But I just have to get over it. Just have to get over it. And I know it's going to be like pulling off a Band-Aid, and when I start reading, it'll be fine. But I just can't be afraid of what I've done. I'm really afraid of the middle in particular, and how much of the middle is like non-existent, or just the plot is like not there. Alright, before I can wallow in it any longer, I think we should just go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid. Let's just start. I'll just read chapter 1, and I think once we get the ball rolling, it'll be fine. I forgot that the first couple chapters of the book are written in present tense, and so I have to fix that. It feels so weird reading it in a different tense now because it's just not that way in my head. In the first chapter, my main character is kind of spying on someone, and she gives some background on who this person is and some political reason of why she's doing what she's doing, and I think I gave too much detail. Like, now that I look back on it, this is not important later. It's not important in the next scene. It never comes up again. I'm thinking of the Brandon Sanderson lecture where he talks about making promises to your reader, and I think this is super tiny but maybe a good small example of, I've given them all this information and political background, so I'm promising that it might come up again, but it's not going to. So rather than misdirect people, that just needs to be redone. Okay, Band-Aid has been ripped. It's okay. I mean, the first chapter is also the one I've rewritten the most times. It makes more sense than my other chapters do. The present tense is really throwing me off and making me feel like it's poorly written because it just feels so jolted. And I think that's one reason why I changed to past tense. But I still feel like it's a good opener. It's full of action. The stakes immediately get bumped up. and I'm still confident that it's starting in the right place, which is good. But yeah, overall, I just feel good about the fact that we started, and I have a little bit of guilt lifted from my shoulders. Coffee stain. It is now fully evening time here on the 13th, day 2 of my reread, and I'm with Meredith in her first live stream. I've been looking forward to it all week to just have some dedicated work time and feel like I'm with friends, so. But yeah, last night I read about the first 100 pages, just getting into Act 2 now, and it was okay. It moved really fast, and I think the plot points are all like roughly in the right spot, but it just like needs to be better, basically, like more world building, more character development. There's like no character development. One thing that is definitely a setting problem that I'm noticing, and I've kind of had this inkling throughout the whole first act, but now definitely that I've gotten to this part where my character is actually trying to like draw a map of the continent in the dirt to explain their journey, and I'm just like, oh man, I really need to make this map and just finally once and for all set in stone what the continent looks like and where everything is, because literally the whole book is just so like wibbly wobbly as far as where things are situated and how far apart things are, and I think that's something that I'm gonna have to tackle in the first draft. I'm finding that my system, which I went through it all in one of my later videos, but the idea basically was to break things up into character problems, setting problems, and plot problems. And in the first act, I haven't written down as much as I thought I would. And I think that's for a few reasons. I think one, the first act is just a little bit cleaner because I've rewritten it like 2 or 3 times. So it's not as zero drafty. And also, the things that are wrong with it are just so, like, I don't know how to put this. It's everything. It can't be split into discrete categories yet. It's kind of just like, yeah, the scene is okay, but just make it better. Like, just make it good. And I don't know if that means that it's better than I thought or it's worse than I thought. Anyway, we're in our first work session with Meredith, so I'm going to start rereading Act 2. Alright. I've been having this guilty feeling because I basically am not taking my own advice. I made a whole video about like Susan Dennard's revision advice. The very like second point in Susan Dennard's advice was to try and read your book all in one sitting, and I definitely haven't been doing that. I don't know if this month was really the best time to do this because I only have like 2 hours of free time on the weekdays to get anything done, and I've been spending that time researching moving companies or trying to figure out what kind of mattress we should buy, or just generally giving into a lot of distractions this month. So I haven't been that determined. I feel like that Ron Swanson quote where he's like, don't half-ass anything, just whole-ass it, or something like that. It's taking a long time to read, which sounds silly because it's a book, and normally we don't read books in 1 day or 2 days, so why should this one go any faster? That was kind of a weird thought that I had, like, oh yeah, this is book length. Like, of course I can't sit down and just read it in like 2 goes, even though that was my plan. But yeah, anyway, so I'm just really motivated to get really into it, just immerse myself in the muddy middle. My reactions and like problem areas are not very organized. I thought I was going to be able to like go through and say like chapter 1, these things are wrong. Chapter 2, these things are wrong. And I think it's just too early for me to approach it that way. So a lot of my notes under like character problems or setting problems are things that like really are just overarching throughout the whole draft. Like figure out orientation of the map of the world, or the love interest doesn't have a personality for like the whole first third of the book, or like big things, and a lot of world building that I just need to sit down and brainstorm and just really fill in my understanding of the magic so that I can build it out better. So I'm taking a lot of notes of like things to come up with and things to brainstorm, but I think my initial approach probably was better suited to like a second draft or third draft. And what I'm really going to be doing this year is rewriting this, which I knew. I just have to rewrite it better. I'm getting into the part of the book now where NaNoWriMo was starting, and so it's getting a lot messier and the words are getting a lot worse. The plot is getting a little questionable. I think my plan is to start the rewrite in April. I'm really excited to take my time because I really had a great time writing this in July when I was just like moving at my own pace. And I'm really excited to get back to that and just be able to write carefully and thoughtfully now that I know what the plot is going to be, and I don't have to like just focus on generating the next scene. I think the difference between this and my next draft is going to be enormous. At least I really hope so. January 23rd update, but we have just been in the thick of moving and apartment's a wreck, boxes everywhere, trying to remember what we're forgetting. Today's Saturday. I'm visiting my parents for the last time before we move and hosting my last write-in with my writing group before we move, and I probably will no longer host them after that. So yeah, just hanging out with everyone on our first sprint and actually finally getting to part 3. So I'm 1 chapter into Act 3 now, and I'm having like almost the same experience as when I was writing it. Act 2 was just awful. It made no sense. I was so lost. Plot was just ever-changing. Outline, who the heck knows? And then we get to Act 3, and everything is just a little more smooth sailing. There's a lot less of me thinking on the page and a lot more of me just going through a scene. I think, like I said when I was writing it, there's just more people to explore, more world building. I'm just enjoying Act 3 a lot more, thank goodness.
Grew into one of the fastest growing watch brands, shipping to over 160 countries across the globe. It's like, nah, that's us. It's all New Zealand. Nice.
Welcome to the only nice corner of my house right now. I think all book people, when they move, bookshelf is the first thing you set up because it just makes you feel better. Makes you feel like you're home. So our bookshelves are all set up and pretty much nothing else in the house is. And just ignore the sign. That was a thrift store find. I convinced Luke to let me bring it home when I told him I would leave him cheeky messages on it, so yeah. The move is done. We're here. It's been several days of just trying to get on our feet, and I feel like I'm finally able to, I'm going to use a YA cliche here, but let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I'm sitting here in front of our big living room window, and I can look outside at our front yard and watch birds. And so far I'm just really loving our spot. But I wanted to come on and kind of wrap up this vlog and this chaotic journey both down the Eastern Coast and through my book, and some of the lessons that I learned while trying to do this zero draft reread. So I wrote down a few things. Number 1, set aside and schedule a specific time to do the reread and stick to it. Yeah, so I have a lot of guilt about the fact that I didn't take my own advice and reread it all in one sitting, or as close to one sitting as I could. And instead of saying, like, I'm going to do the month of January, that's too broad. I should have said, I'm going to do January 3rd through 5th, or 3rd through 6th, or whatever, and just pick the weekend and do it that weekend and don't put it off and don't let it go longer than that. Although I don't think it really, like, had a negative impact on how well I understood what I did. But it definitely stressed me out that the project was still ongoing and I was kind of like spinning in circles. So, you know, just get it over with, basically. Don't try to do this when you're moving across the country and you just don't have the free time for it. In case that wasn't obvious to anyone with a normal brain. Number 3, the middle is just what? That is what I wrote. I said the middle is just what? The middle of this book is really squishy, and it doesn't make sense. Plot is just like jumping all over the place. It's so choppy, and I was trying to work out what exactly I wanted to have happen, and there's a lot of false starts and ideas in the middle that I drop and then move on to another way things could play out. Then I drop that and move on to this, and oh, this idea, and you know, the middle was NaNoWriMo time, and that's just what Nano is all about. That's what zero drafting is all about. There's like no connective tissue in the middle. Overall, like the big lesson is that this just needs a huge rewrite, which obviously I knew. I'm not expecting a zero draft to come out in any like remotely good fashion. It's got to be rewritten from page 1, and that's no surprise. The system, and I kind of talked about this in an earlier clip of trying to attack it from character, setting, plot, is not really conducive to this zero draft, or at least how shitty my zero drafts are, because it's kind of like if you're building a house and you know, you arrive at the site and the framework is half put up, and you want to start putting down a list of things that are wrong with the roof and things that are wrong with the interior and things you want to plan for. It's just kind of stupid when the house frame is not even built yet. It's not a situation where it's like, fix this about Kit's character. It's more like, put Kit's character on the page, because it's not there. Overall, though, I'm really glad I took the time to learn about Susan Dennard's method, because I think I'm totally going to come back to it in future drafts that are cleaner and that can be looked at in such discrete, you know, problem areas. But for right now, I just have to rewrite this and get all the sand in the sandbox, as it were. Like, that's one of my favorite writing metaphors, is you have to put sand in the sandbox before you can build anything. And, you know, maybe I got like 70% of the sand in the sandbox, but there's a lot missing. Oh, I just realized you can see piles of stuff in the back. That's great. That's everything I have about the reread. I'm glad that it's over, and I'm really just ready to push forward. I think obviously the move had to happen, but I'm really ready to get going. Like, I've been feeling this anxious, like, energy about the fact that I haven't been working on my writing for several weeks, and it's really starting to bug me. I'm really ready to stop dragging my feet and get settled and just make 2021 happen. I feel kind of scared of talking about like making 2021 my year, because we all said that about 2020 and look what happened. You know, I've learned that we don't have control or as much control as we thought over the shape that a year will take. But I really want 2021 to be a big year for me and my writing. And it's February. It's time to get going. Thanks for coming along on this month-long vlog with me as I reread my novel and moved across the country. Thanks as always for joining and for watching my long vlog. It's so much fun chatting with you. Tell me down below what you're working on and what your goals are, and see you next time.